This is another question that is frequently asked in biblical or theological Q&A sessions. The fact of the matter is that the Bible is largely silent about the beginnings of Satan. It is much more explicit about his end, which will be the lake of fire and sulfur, which burns forever and ever, where he will be tormented day and night. People are often surprised to find out that there is no passage of Scripture that explicitly describes Satan's fall. He appears out of nowhere in Genesis 3 in the form of a serpent when he tempts Adam and Eve to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thereby rebelling against God and breaking God's covenant. Satan's creation, like the creation of the rest of the angelic realm, is simply not described in Genesis 1 or 2. And even in Genesis 3, the serpent is not explicitly named Satan. This is merely inferred, rightly I think, from other passages like Revelation 12:9, which refers to Satan as that great dragon, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. But even though explicit teaching about Satan is rare in Scripture, much can still be deduced. For instance, only God is eternal, having no beginning and no end. Angels, including Satan, are not God. Therefore, Satan is not eternal, which means he must be a created being. He has a beginning. There was a time when he did not exist. And this is important for Christian doctrine because it demonstrates that Satan is not the equal of God in some kind of dualistic sense where God and Satan are battling one another for the souls of men and the fate of the universe. And this is why Luther was fond of calling him God's devil, because he was created by God. He lives under God's sovereign rule. He cannot operate independently of God's will, and even though he rages against God's will, he must accomplish God's purposes. Furthermore, because angels, including Satan, are spiritual beings, I assume that they were created before God created the physical universe, including before the creation of humans. Job 38:7 would seem to suggest this, where it describes the sons of God, that is, the angels, shouting for joy when God created the cosmos. So to the question of when Satan fell, we would have to say sometime after God created the angelic beings, but sometime before Satan appears in the Garden of Eden to tempt Adam and Eve. Satan is already fallen by Genesis 3:1 when he comes to tempt Adam and Eve. In other words, Satan fell sometime between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 3:1, and that's about the best we can do with regard to the time frame. To the question of where Satan fell, I simply don't know. Was it in heaven? Was it upon the earth? Was it someplace else? The Bible never says. The best we can do is speculate, but I would warn us against trying to speak authoritatively where the Bible is silent. I would also warn us against thinking that Satan was kicked out of heaven because of his sin. I think this betrays an overly simplistic view of the exact relationship between heaven and earth, and furthermore, it does not comport with Scripture. In Job chapter 1, we read, "Now there was a day when the sons of God," that's the angels, "came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, 'From where have you come?' And Satan answered the Lord and said, 'From going to and fro upon the earth, and from walking up and down it.'" Well, clearly then, Satan still has access to heaven, can come and go out of the presence of God, even in his fallen state. There are a couple of references to Satan falling like lightning from heaven. Jesus says that in Luke 10:18. And Satan and his angels being thrown down from heaven, Revelation 12, 8 and 9. But there's a lot of debate about what exactly those verses refer to, and I suspect that these verses refer to Christ's first coming rather than to some prehistoric fall. Well, finally, how did Satan fall? Well, again, all we have is mystery. There is no explicit teaching in Scripture about the fall of Satan. Jesus says in John 8:44 regarding the unbelieving Jews of his day, "You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies." So from the beginning, says Jesus, Satan was a murderer and a liar. There may be a reference to Satan's fall in Isaiah 14, when Isaiah prophesies specifically with regard to the king of Babylon, "How you have fallen from heaven, O day star, son of the dawn. How you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven above the stars of God. I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the far reaches of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High." But you are brought down to Sheol, to the far reaches of the pit. Since Babylon often stands in Scripture as a symbol of the fallen world that is in rebellion against God, for instance, in places like Revelation 18, and since Satan is called in Scripture the god of this world, 2 Corinthians 4:4, and the ruler of this world, John 12:31 and 14:30, it seems legitimate to me to take this prophecy of Isaiah as directed not only to the literal king of Babylon, but beyond him to the figurative king of Babylon, that is, Satan. If this is true, then Satan's fall would be the result of his desire to make himself like the Most High, which sounds suspiciously like what he tempted Adam and Eve to do, doesn't it? "You will be like God," he told them. And this is the essence of sin, the rejection of God, the rejection of his glory and sovereignty, and the desire to glorify and enthrone ourselves. All sin is therefore a repetition and rehearsal of Satan's fall. Sin is following in Satan's footsteps, or as Jesus told the Jews of John chapter 8, you are doing the things that your father, the devil, did. One more question I might address related to these questions regards the fall of the rest of the angels. Again, there's not a lot to go on. However, it would appear that a great multitude of angels, not all of them, but a great multitude of angels, followed Satan in his rebellion and were judged by God alongside him. You can read about this in Revelation chapter 12, verses 7 and 8. These fallen angels are known in Scripture as demons or evil spirits, and their end will be the same as Satan's, the lake of fire that burns with fire and brimstone forever and ever.